Hello, Garland Nixon here. We're hanging out with Dr. Jim Kavanaugh, and oh my gosh, we got a lot of things to talk about. We'll start with Iran. Let's talk. Hello, Garland here, and we're hanging out with Dr. Jim Kavanaugh. We got plenty of things to talk about, as always. My gosh, things that we don't want to talk about, things that we're not comfortable talking about, but we got no choice because it's just what we do. Dr. Jim Kavanaugh, you can find him at The Polemicist on Substack, and of course, where else they can find you on X, right?
Yeah, X at The Polemicist _.
All righty. You know, one of the things that's talked about a lot right now, and I guess it's in the context particularly of the Epstein Files, it was a discussion before then, and that is, okay, how much authority does the president, i.e. Donald Trump, have to make a decision whether or not to attack Iran, number one, and number two, the issue of compromat. You know, remember before, the Russians have compromat on Trump that has to do with the P tape and prostitutes and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was the Russians. I don't think it was the Russians that had a little something to dangle over Trump's head. Anyway, your thoughts on those issues, Jim Kavanaugh?
Yeah, look, there is a speculation going around that the Israelis have stuff on Trump that hasn't been released, and they've allowed what's been released to be released because they're saying, look, we've allowed this much to be released. We're holding back the really bad stuff, which would be the tapes and the videos and the pictures. And if you don't attack Iran, we're going to let that out. So that's a speculation. The bizarre thing is, it's perfectly reasonable speculation at this point, you know? I mean, we have no reason not to believe that, you know? The whole situation is so bizarre at this point with, because really everybody knows, they know that attacking Iran is going to be a shit show. I mean, one way or another, they can't think they're going to get away with this without getting hurt very badly, both militarily and politically. And it's impossible that they're going to get away clean with this. And Trump is a guy, you know, I said this before, you know, and I've been saying since 2018, they're going to attack Iran. And I said right after the beginning of the Gaza thing, they're going to attack Iran. It's the only way out of this. The only way out of this is to upend the table. And that's the thing. They're going to do it. And but, you know, Trump backed out of this once before in 2018, I think it was, when the Iranians took down a Global Hawk, I think it was Global Hawk drone, which is like a $200 million drone. They took that down. There was a big push to attack Iran, and he had all the things in place to do it. And Trump called it off with 10 minutes to go. And he said he did that because he had seen something on Tucker Carlson, whatever, but he called it off. And he both ordered it and then called it off. So we know that Trump doesn't want this big fight that he may lose. You know, he wants to be seen as the guy who's made peace. And he's got to know, and I hope that there are the people in the military, not Hegseth, but the generals and the admirals are telling him, this is not going to go easy. We're going to take hits. And it's not going to go down in a week. So, you know, I hope they're saying that. But on the other hand, I'm convinced, as you say, he's got to say yes. He's got to give the order. But the pressure on him and the people around him and the forces around him are so strong, and they're so adamant about this. And it's never going to become easier from this day forward. Iran is going to get strong, already gotten stronger and stronger, and in the last 5 years, and you know they're never going to be able to do this. There's never going to be a better time. So they didn't succeed with the regime change operation with the protests and crap. So there's going to be so much pressure on him. I still say it's 80-90%. There's going to be a hit, and it's going to be soon. I just saw something today that they're bringing in better air defense systems, and that's why they're holding back. Whatever, I don't know, but I think there is going to be a hit, and it's going to be a disaster politically for Trump. It's going to be a disaster for the whole world. And I've been hard for me to put pen to paper about this because I'm waiting for this to happen, and the world is going to change the minute it does in a way that we don't know. And you know, it's not. I don't want to be. You know, we've all sat around and said, oh, they can't attack Venezuela because they got all these great weapons, and they can't attack, the Russians attack Ukraine will be over in half an hour. These things didn't work out that way. So we don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be bad. And I don't know what weapons the Russians and Chinese have given, how prepared the Iranians are, but they have weapons, and they thousands and thousands. And Hezbollah has weapons, and it's going to ignite at least a regional war. And I'm 90% sure at the end of the day, there'll be nuclear weapons will be used. Israel will use nuclear weapons on Iran. I've said that for a long time. It's not going to be Russia. It's not going to be China. The first place where nuclear weapons are used, it's going to be Iran. It's going to be in the Middle East. And these people are crazy. Everybody's crazy. Donald Trump, you got to stop thinking that there's some rational psycho or geopolitical way that you can think your way out of this. The forces involved here, Israel is a maniac force, and they're in this to do something that nobody in the world can justify. But they've already done it. They've done it with Syria, they've done it with Libya, they've done it with Iraq, and they think they can do it again. And they have every reason to think they can do it again. And the Trump administration at this point is doing things that nobody in the world can justify. You can't justify kidnapping the head of state. You can't justify what they're doing in Cuba. And they don't care about what people think, And so there's no talking your way out of this. There's going to be at some point, if it's not now, it's going to have to be somewhere soon. There's going to have to be a fight over this. The Americans now are not going to stop doing things that are completely outrageous, completely illegal, completely contrary to any kind of international law until they're stopped, until they run into a wall and they get hurt badly. And that's going to have to happen. And the Iran thing is that which is facing us immediately where it's likely to happen. So I'm very afraid of the whole situation. It's not good.
You can compare, and this is because it's the empire. I could compare this to the Ukraine in a couple of ways. The United States was expanding closer and closer to Russia's border. Well, why were they doing that? Because they wanted to destroy Russia and take Russia. I've said this: an empire only sees two kinds of countries: countries that it has taken over and it controls, and countries that it intends to take over and control. There's not a third option. So Russia to the U.S. was, well, we don't control it yet. We intend to control it eventually. There's nothing else, right? So they're continuing to expand. Russia saying, don't expand. Okay, yeah, well, we'll talk. We're expanding. And we're just going to keep expanding. And as we found out, exactly as you said, there was only one way Russia was going to stop from expanding. They were going to expand up to Russia's border. They were going to put missiles. Then eventually nuclear missiles went into Ukraine. They're going to choke Russia. They're going to threaten them. And Russia was like, no, you're not. Well, there's only one way to stop them. And as the old saying goes, there's only one way to win a war. And Russia says, okay, well, you've gotten to this point. Are you going to stop? No, then we got to fight. When you have a malevolent force like this that says, okay, we're going to dominate the whole Middle East, and that includes Iran. And Iran says, we'll talk. No, that ain't what we do. The only one, as you said, there's only one way you're ever going to stop us. We're going to keep trying, and we're going to fight you. And it appears to me that Iran had said, you know what, if we're going to fight, we're going to fight. Now let's do it. Yeah. Now, there's something different in that the U.S. at least had a little plausible deniability. They had a proxy force between them and Ukraine. I mean, between them and Russia, that was Ukraine. Okay. Yeah. Then they tried it with Israel, and they had a proxy force between them and Iran. Now we got Israel. Well, Iran, in my opinion, they swatted Israel like a fly. Mm-hmm. Israel's only option was nuclear weapons, and they cried to the U.S., come in, and the U.S. said, we'll just get in this thing. Okay. So now they're in the place that they were in Ukraine. In order to dominate that region, they're going to have to kinetically go in and fight. Only it's worse now because they got to do the fighting because their proxy has already been smacked down. So now the U.S. has to say, here's the options for the hegemon. Number one, go home with your tail between your legs because Iran has told you no. Or number two, you got to fight it out with Iran. So I think I'm saying the same thing as you, Jim.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm going to insist that this is for Israel. The United States could live with this is all. Everything that's happened from Iraq, Syria, Libya, this is for Israel. And this is Zionist program. Zionism is precarious. As long as the Palestinians exist and live there, Zionism is precarious because it can't justify itself. And it got itself in a situation in the last 2 years where that's become obvious to most people in the world in a way that it wasn't. Zionism is unjustifiable colonialism and Jewish supremacist apartheid. And so, and it's trying to eliminate, and it has successfully eliminated states that had military and economic power that supported the Palestinian resistance. And Iran is the last one left, and it's a big one. And they want to eliminate, they want a situation in which Israel is the dominant power in the region. There is no country or combination of countries that can militarily challenge it or militarily defend itself against Israel. That's why this is not about non-existent nuclear weapons. It's about Iran's real military strength, specifically its accurate and deadly ballistic missile system, and it's about their support of the Palestinian resistance. And that's what they want. That's why the JCPOA was not good enough. They want Iran to buckle on those things. They want regime change in Iran again, whether they do it by force or by, intimidation. They want Iran to say, okay, we accept Israel as the hegemonic power in the region. We will disarm ourselves so we cannot defend ourselves against Israel if they want to attack us, and we'll accept the American and Israeli. We accept Zionism as a fact of life and the hegemonic power in the region. And if Iran does that, they'll be fine. If they don't do that, then Israel is going to demand a war. And we're still at the stage in the United States where Israel is capable of doing that and getting the United States into war. It's done it 5 times already. Unless Israel says, okay, we're willing to live with an anti-Zionist Iran that's militarily capable of hurting us, and we'll support whatever Palestinian resistance there is, or Iran, on the other hand, says, okay, we give up, we'll make deals and stop supporting Palestinian resistance and destroy our ballistic missiles, then you're going to have a war, and they're going to have to fight it out that way. And this is something I just don't know. I don't know the extent to which I think there have been, let's put it this way, there have been, and Pezeshkian represents it in Iran, Western-friendly, wanting to accommodate, wanting to make deals with the United, believing that we could figure out a way with the Europeans or the Russians to get together and just get the United States off our back. If Iran had, I think there's no longer a strong force in Iran that believes that crap, but I don't know. I don't 100% know. And Iran is going to get into a situation where it's going to get hurt. It's going to get smashed. It's going to get hit with nuclear weapons. And they're going to have to decide whether they're going to take that and fight to the finish, or they're going to say, okay, we give up. Without saying we give up, just saying, oh, we just.
But you got to, if you understand Shia Muslim, that never. But what is for centuries? What is the foundational saying as the Shia Muslim? Never humiliation.
Yeah.
So no, that's not a possibility. You know what I mean? The foundation of their culture is not even a possibility. They will fight you to the last man every single time. I tell you this. Let me ask. It's something you mentioned. I want to throw in there in the context of the Epstein files. I remember I went on a radio show a few years back with a Zionist lady, and she was upset because somebody in Congress had said that Israel's an apartheid state, and I said, well. And I mentioned at the time some study from the UN or something that said, it fits the criteria. And I basically said, if an international body has said that it fits that criteria, I cannot really dismiss the claim by a member of the U.S. Congress. So she goes on Twitter and starts screaming that I attacked her, which is, what Zionists going to do. I just said, hey, it fits the criteria of the blah, the UN, blah, blah. Oh, my God, don't attack me. Right. But here's my point. You can say Zionism is Jewish supremacy in a context of the Epstein files, where you had Epstein and these people saying the Goyim, what I mean? Where you heard the Zionists, and these were diehard Zionists talking about, and they weren't saying non-Zionists because Trump's a Zionist, and we, there's plenty of, we've got all of these Christian Zionists. They weren't saying Zionists.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
This was pure Jewish supremacy. This was to say that a person who says, those people who are non-Jews were put on this earth to serve me.
Yeah.
How can you say that would be anything else but apartheid in a country where they are literally genociding people who are non-Jews?
Yeah, the Epstein things are full of, only hire Jews. You're 99% Jews, so you're smarter. The Jews are smarter than everybody else. I mean, this is literally in there, And Epstein with, I thought it was funny when he was talking to someone about criticizing Bill Gates and the Gates Foundation. So they believe in this silly idea that all persons are equal, all people are equal. That's the worst kind of Catholicism. So he was like, the Catholics believe that, but we Jews don't believe that crap. So, and there is Jewish supremacism throughout the Epstein files, and it's good. People should see that. That's a strain. That is Christianity, Islam. They all have nasty strains of, Westboro Baptist Church, and you can read the Bible from front to back, and you can take out, Amalek. That's part of the Old Testament, part of the Christian Bible. So you can play this game. Everybody has nasty elements, but what Zionism has done to Judaism is to wedded it to the nastiest possible, Talmudic interpretations of Judaism and of the Goyim as the cattle and as our slaves and the people are going to work for us, and these are people. This is the chief Sephardic rabbi. This is state paid rabbis. This is just the American. If the United States government were paying clerics, state-supported clerics, to say that black people were monkeys and they should be white people's slaves, there's no difference. That's what they're saying about Goyim, and so that's you got face the fact that there's a strain of Jewish supremacism that has, as insofar as Judaism in the United States or in the Western world has married itself and embedded itself within Zionism, it's embedding itself within a certain strand of Judaism that is very nasty. It's supremacist. It's racist in the most general sense, in that sense. And it certainly can't deny that it's supremacist about Arabs. Arabs are but clearly lesser people than they are. Now, you might want to not emphasize the fact that everybody who's a Goyim is not as important as you are because you want their support. But this is part of this is the nasty version of Judaism that's been used by the Zionists, who are not religious, but that's the version they want. Originally the Zionists were not religious; they were secular atheists. But anyway, so that's there, and you got to see it. But it's part and parcel of also, it's funny because you have the Jewish supremacism and you have the class supremacism. I mean, throughout the Epstein files, you see these people. Oh, is there a way we can get rid of poor people as a whole?
Yeah.
It's clear they despise. They consider normal people insects. They know they have lives that they live in a different country, in a different universe, in a different set of morals. A moral universe that doesn't, the things they tell everybody else to do and to need and to want, that doesn't apply to them. It's a big club. It's a ruling class club. You ain't in it, and they don't give a damn about you. Anybody who's fooled into thinking that is a fool. and you read these things, and you'll see the extent to which they have nothing but contempt for ordinary people, and they consider themselves in another plane of morality and ontology than ordinary folk. And we are just something that we got to kind of figure out how to manage us in some way. And that's what it is. It's very striking, but this is class warfare. And it's funny because you're seeing this now all over the internet. All of a sudden, everybody's like, oh yeah, this is a ruling class. It's a big club and we ain't in it. And they don't give a damn about us. They want to get rid of us insofar as possible.
Well, what's interesting is that clearly it is Zionism is a strain of Jewish supremacy, right?
Yeah.
And I caution people from anti-Semitic things about the Jew. Like one of my great journalism heroes is, I could go on and on and on. Medea Benjamin's a good friend. Max Blumenthal, I could go on and on with all this Jewish people. Katie Halper. This is a strain of Judaism. This is not Judaism. I would argue that this strain of Judaism has been strongly promoted by the imperial powers, the United States, because it is greatly beneficial to them. And here's the thing that to me is the apparent evidence. It's the rules-based order. It's a version of the rules-based order, isn't it? It's France. It's what Mark Carney said. We can do what we want. We can hold the rules differently for our friends and us, of course, than we can for our adversaries. We can do all of these things that benefit us. He pretty much said, when it comes to money and resources, we can do things that benefit us that don't benefit other people. And we've done this thing. Why? We lied, we cheated, we stole. Why? Because it benefited us. And when you look at Zionism, that's what you see. The rules, a religious-based version of the rules-based order. We can lie, we can steal, we can cheat, we can do whatever we want. Why? Because it benefits us. The only thing really, if you listen to Mark Carney in Davos, what he was doing is he was lamenting the fact that Trump is throwing a monkey wrench in it, saying, come on, Trump, man, we're We're all trying to get paid here, brother. We're all eating well. Now, you don't screw this thing up. He wasn't saying it's over and it should be. He was saying, I'm very sad because it's over. What are we going to do? It's worked so well for us. And this jerk comes along and his crew and throws a monkey wrench in it. I mean, if that's really what he was saying. But my point being, you can see how Zionism aligns and why it works so perfectly well for the imperial colonial powers.
Yeah, well, it's a cousin of white supremacism and a cousin of class supremacism, but it's embedded itself within the class structure of society in a way that is helpful to it and to the class structure of society. So that's what's that's what's going on, and we just it's amazing how this is, though. The mask is off. When you're picking someone's pocket, it's not a good idea to say, I'm picking your pocket. When you're crushing someone under your boot, it's not a good idea to say, I'm crushing you under my boot. You got to say, oh, I'm saving you from the guy over there, who wants to chop your head off. That's why you're under my boot. Oh, I'm not picking your pocket. I'm checking out, make sure everything's safe in there. You know what I mean? This is what you got to do. And they've given up on that entirely, really. So at this point, and very quickly, all of that rhetoric, nobody can buy it anymore. Nobody can buy it. There's nothing they're doing. The ICE is not out there enforcing immigration laws. They're out there intimidating people and saying, we don't care about the Constitution. We don't care about your right. That doesn't exist anymore. Forget about talking about that. We can do what we want. And we're going to set up detention camps, not for illegal. That's detention camps for millions of people. They're not illegal. They're detention camps for you. You don't have any rights. You can't just come here and break the window of my car. You can't just break down and come into my house. Yeah, we can. We're going to do it. You want to stop? No, I don't care about your rights. Don't tell me about that. And in the international arena, you just can't go in and kidnap the head of state. Oh yeah, we can. Watch us. So everybody has to recognize we're in this state now. They can't pretend anymore that, we really believe in the Constitution. We really believe in the rule of law and the international law. And no, you don't.
And the Second Amendment.
Yeah, the Second Amendment. First, Second, and Fourth Amendments. We don't believe in the First Amendment. We don't believe in the Second Amendment. We don't believe in the Fourth Amendment. Search and seizure, privacy. So they don't. It's not even worth pretending to have the discussion with them. They told you, fuck you, fuck all that. We're going to do what we want. And they're saying in the international arena, oh, this is not freedom and democracy anymore. This is about, we want the oil, we want to take it over, we want to do it, we want to dump, whatever. It's whatever we want to do, we're going to do. So everybody, this is the problem. Internally, everybody, citizens have to start saying, how are we going to resist this? You're not going to get this through the courts. You're not going to get this through the Congress. You have to go out in the street and create trouble. That's bigger trouble than they're creating for you. That's more frightening to them. And that includes using the Second Amendment, it includes Black Panther type stuff. I saw two white people out in fucking with arms in Minnesota. And that includes mass protest, real mass disruptive protest. And on the international level, somebody has to step up and force the United States to fight. If they allow the Americans to take over Venezuela, to take over Cuba, to destroy Cuba, there's only a couple of countries in the world that can stand up to that. I'm sorry, and I understand 100%. Why should we bother with that? That's not our part of the world. We have other problems. They do have other problems, but you're creating a situation that's going to come back to bite you at some point soon. You have to stop you have to say to the Americans, the rule, any kind of international law or rules-based order is over. You ended it, and we're going to act we're treating you as a bully who has no rights, and we're going to smash you as a bully that's necessary. And if you want to get back to a rules-based, we're going to have to sit down together and create a new one, because the old one, you're going to forget about the UN. UN has no power. They're not going to do anything. They've allowed Gaza to happen. We've already seen two years of this with Gaza, and it's terrible. And so someone's going to stop this. And it's going to go on. I mean, they may not stop it this year. They may not stop it in Cuba. But Iran is the place where it may stop, because the Russians and the Chinese do have interests in Iran that they may not allow the Americans to trample on. But it's really it's dangerous. It's a dangerous time we're at.
Let me ask you this, because we're going to continue. We got lots more to talk about Iran, but this is all part of a big discussion. One of the issues in Ukraine, right? And you and I discussed it for years, and that was there will be a time when the issue of U.S. domination and of NATO's even existence has to reckon with the reality of a catastrophic loss, and that time's coming. The Russians have pummeled the Ukrainian NATO military, wiped out their gear for 4 years, and now they're just saying we're turning out the lights.
Yeah.
And they're creating an environment in Ukraine where people can't live anymore. They're just saying we're going to turn this into a godforsaken wasteland. Now you're going to fight to preserve a godforsaken wasteland. See if you can do that, right? And that's war, man. It's bad. It's unfortunate. And I hate it. It's terrible.
Yeah.
People are going to freeze to death. Old people are going to freeze. People aren't going to have food. That is war, right? That's reality. Now, here's what I'm asking you, Jim. It's clearly Trump and his crew are trying to worm their way out of that. They're like, oh, no, it wasn't us. That was Biden. No, that's not us, though, which is bullcrap. But here's my question. What you and I had talked about was the old come to Jesus moment, right? The time is going to come. And now the Russians, it's clear. They're going to take everything. Will they take Odessa? They'll take anything they want to and everything. And it'll just be a hellhole frozen wasteland if they want to take it. Here's my point. That time of reckoning, when they wake up and the Russians are marching into Kiev, the Russians are marching into Odessa, the Russians are marching everywhere they want, where this thing has fallen into slop, is coming. Do you think it's still going to be the same kind of dangerous moment? Do you see it through the same lenses you saw it, say, 2 years ago?
Well, not entirely. I think there's more of a possibility that the Americans will let it go, but I still think that there is a very big danger that they won't. That when the Russians are on the verge of taking Kiev and Odessa, there's going to be a tremendous amount of pressure to stop them, to do something to stop them. Now, again, it's like Iran. It's you can't really do it very well. It's not going to work very well. So the Americans are in a tough position, and the question is the extent to which they're willing, they realize it, and the extent to which they accept it. We are going to lose Ukraine. We've lost this battle. This is, our Stalingrad, in the sense that this was the furthest we got in our offensive war against Russia to break up Russia, to turn Russia into to do what we did to Ukraine, to Iraq and Libya, to Russia and Syria. We got this far, and then it stopped, and we're getting pushed back. And we have to accept that fact. And I think there is a coterie of people in the U.S. government who are willing to say, okay, we'll retreat into our sphere of influence. We'll dominate Latin America. We'll dominate the Western Hemisphere. And we're going to let Russia and China take the Eurasian landmass. McKinder be damned. But I don't think...
There's an internal battle over that, I think.
Bet on that. I wouldn't bet on it.
There's an internal battle over that.
Yeah.
I would put it like that. There are elements that are, let's face it, I hate to use this word, more realistic. There are elements that say, look, even if we want to stop the Russians, we can't. We're on their border and they got 800,000 troops in it. What are we going to do? Can we fly over there? They got S-400s. We probably wouldn't even be a good job of doing that. What can we do? What are our realistic options? Those are the people that are more realistic, that are just going to say, let's find an outlet, an off ramp from this. And they're looking for off ramps. Yeah. But as you said, there's going to be the non-realists. There's going to be the Lindsey Grahams that say, no, we got to stop Putin, crap. And I think, don't you think that's the same battle in Iran? That there's a certain amount of realists saying, look, it's quite simple. I don't know what we can do with Iran, but whatever we can do, the cost is too high. The price would be too high. In fact, we had a better chance back in June where we punched them, and they're using Israel, and their air defense system was a little weak. Now it's stronger. Now we got even lesser chance now. We had more ships fighting the Houthis than we have now, and we lost to the Houthis. Do we really? And I think so. There's a realistic people saying we had more ships against the Houthis, and they ran us out of the Red Sea. Do we really think this is a good option? It could go bad. Those are the realists. And I think isn't that the imperial conversation inside the empire? You know, like if you're walking around, that voice inside your head that says, get the ice cream. Don't get the ice cream. Come on, Jim. You know you like that ice cream. I don't want to eat it. I don't need to eat that ice cream. It's got fat and sugar. That, you know what I mean? There's a realism saying it ain't good for you. And then there's a guy saying, man, but that, you know how you love better pecan ice cream.
Okay, but the difference between Ukraine and
okay, go ahead.
The difference between Ukraine and Iran is Israel and Zionism. And that's a factor that, you know, Israel doesn't care that much about Ukraine. At the end of the day, they'll give up Ukraine, but Israel will not give up Zionism. And they see Ukraine as a important ultimate test for them. And the level at which Zionism influences American politics is, you know, can't overstate it. So first of all, and they don't believe, and also there's a kind of a legacy disbelief that the Iranians could be that strong. The Russians that's Russia, but Iranians, they really can't be that strong. Israel and the United States, we're the coolest, greatest militaries in the world. We have so much crap, and we have nuclear weapons, and they're not wrong. And so we're going to defeat the Iranians. What I'm saying is on both sides, on the two sides of the equation, there are more people who think we can defeat the Iranians. Whatever they think they have, they can never defeat us. And there are more people who are saying, this is important. This is more important because this is do or die for Zionism. And we can't let Zionism be defeated. So these things, and they're at least half non-rational, all of them, you know, in a certain sense. And they're elements that the people who are committed to them are existentially and psychologically committed to them. And I think what they're going to get, what they're hoping they're going to get Trump to do is to say, first of all, we can defeat him, and we can defeat him in 2 weeks or a month, maybe, you know, but you know, you'll be a hero and blah, blah, blah. And to say, we can do it. I mean, you can't be a loser. And that's the problem. You can't be the loser. The pitch they're going to be the Trump, and that's the pitch of Ukraine too. You cannot be the one who takes the L here. And I think that pitch is going to be even stronger in some sense with Ukraine than it is with Iran than it is with Ukraine, because he can blame Iran on Ukraine on Biden. No, it's not. It's wrong. But that's why it's such a dangerous situation. It's really a dangerous situation.
Well, and there's a number of similarities, right? And this is one of the reasons that it's similar and dangerous for this reason. Okay, what's his name? Boris Johnson said, if we lose in Ukraine, that's it for Western hegemony. Now, why? Because your plan is dead. Your plan for hegemony said we're going to dominate the Eurasian landmass. We're going to take Ukraine, and then we'll just surround Russia. Then we'll take Russia, and we're on to China, and we're going to run. So you have a plan, and you are executing that plan to rule the world, as evil as it may seem, and diabolical as it may be. But you're still pushing forward that plan. When Ukraine stopped you, the plan's dead. Yeah. Your plan to keep, maintain, increase, however you see it, Western hegemony, it's over. You have to come up with something new. And the rest of the world knows it's over. And the Africans look, the Asians look, the South Americans look, you lost, buddy. The dynamic changes everywhere in the world, and they know it, right? So that's one. In the Middle East, the Israelis say we want to dominate, of course, with our big uncle, the United States, and being the gorilla, the enforcer that backs up our domination, right? But not as long as Iran is powerful and growing more powerful. So it's the same dynamic. If you run up to the edge of Iran and you get stopped there, that idea of dominating the Middle East is over, at least for now. Mm-hmm. If you run up to Ukraine and you get to Russia's border, the issue of expanding, what are you expanding for anymore? Here's what they've done. The empire is now contracting. The empires always have to expand, just like capitalism always has to expand, find new territories, new victims, new resources, new everything, right? So it's expanding. It ain't made to contract. Russia's making you contract. What did Iran do? You expanded into Iran. What did they do that was so bad? They took it back and they forced you to contract. Things you never ever want to do as an empire. They've contracted you. So now that they took that from you, you got to go take it again. You've got to show, no, we are not contracting. We can expand. And you said, we're going to take Iran again. And Iran pushes you back. We're going to take it again. And Iran pushes you back. And that's what's going on. It is the difference between the empire expanding or contracting. And there's two instances where it's been pushed. So to me, there's just so much similarity here for the future of calling yourself a powerful empire, a dominant, hegemonic empire. Go ahead.
That's what I meant with the Stalingrad analogy. Imperfect. You know, it's the point at which you start retreating and you're moving back and you're shrinking and you're the territory over which you have control is shrinking and is being taken back. And you know, it's not going to be a clear process entirely, because what they're doing in South America certainly is we're going to take over more control of this territory. We're going to control it more, you know. And they're going to try to do that in as many places as they can. Okay.
Yep.
But this moment, this post-Soviet moment from 1991 to 2014, 2022, let's put it that way, where hyperpower, American hyperpower, they could treat the Russia with contempt. They could treat China. We don't have to pay attention to what they think or they care. We can do what we want. You know, and we can pretend while we're doing it, you know, that we're good guys and creating freedom and democracy, and it's us against the dictators. So that's over. and Russia has demonstrated militarily, that's what's so important, that's over, that you're going to have to back off or have a big fight that you may lose. And you cannot presume that they did, as they did for 30 years, that we're not going to lose that fight. Yeah, you may lose that fight. So that's now the situation. And everybody in the world is trying to figure out how to play that game now. And everybody's got problems with that. And the Russians and the Chinese have problems with that. You know, I want Russia or China to stop the Americans from, to challenge the Americans in Venezuela, to challenge the Americans in Cuba. And militarily say, you're going to have to fight us if you want to overthrow the government of Cuba. If you want to overthrow the government of Cuba, you can't stop us. You can't stop Venezuela from giving us oil or from giving Cuba oil. We will, our navies will convoy ships oil from Venezuela to Cuba. You know, you can't do this. So, but you know, they're probably not going to do that. You know, everybody is afraid of the big confrontation for good reasons. So I don't know what's going to come of it. And the crazy thing is, the Americans and Trump are like, we're not afraid of anything. So, okay, let's see how you play this game now, you know? So everybody's a little wary of how to confront that and what to do about it. Because you are talking about, you know, powers that have nuclear weapons and powers that have huge armies and can, whether they win or lose at the end of the day, they can hurt a lot of people and kill a lot of people and destroy a lot of the world. And this is what we're coming to. And that's why, you know, the Union of Concerned Scientists has moved the minute hand to, you know, the furthest as closest it's been to midnight. So it's a very, very tough situation, because we all could hide behind the mask and the rhetoric that, okay, it's never going to get this far. And it's never nobody's going to go this far or that. That's over. That's really over. You've seen it now. Everything is at stake, and there are no rules no Marcus of Queensberry rules. There's no UN rules. There's no rules-based order. You gotta stop the bully by putting him down in some way. And he doesn't even know. And this is really, you know, this is the other, I mean, it's, you know, Biden had competence problems. Trump has mental competence problems. I'm convinced he also thinks, I mean, going into what he's doing in Ukraine, he thinks he's going to come up with some deal that's everybody's going to accept because he's so smart and he's such a great deal maker. And I don't know what he's going to do when that doesn't happen. He's afraid of that, but he doesn't yet believe, I'm convinced, in Ukraine, that he's not going to come up with a deal that Putin's going to accept and Zelensky's going to accept and everybody's going to accept because he's so strong and he's so smart. And And this is part of the problem. And I don't know how the people who are pushing him to do Extra Z are going to use that to push him to do what they want. But we're stuck in a very bad situation with this now, and it's extremely, extremely dangerous.
Yeah, and the issue, as far as all of this stuff, there's two things. The term deal, right? That implies, Jim, that I'm selling you a microwave oven, and you're like, well, Garland, and I'm like, well, I'm not using this microwave oven. I had two of them, and I just moved. You want one? What? And Jim, you're like, yeah, I don't need one, but I'll give you $20, 15, 18, 1850, 1875, and then shake hands. Here's the microwave oven, right? That's a deal. You're talking about a treaty between superpowers that needs to go to the Rada. I mean, not the Rada. What do they call it? Is that the Russian?
The Russian. The Rada is Ukraine.
The Russian. But anyway, to their congressional, their parliamentary congressional group, their legislative that needs to go to the Senate and be ratified. You know what I mean? And the United States is not competent to ratify a treaty anymore. Our Senate is unable to ratify any treaty. Any treaty, the only treaty that the Senate could ratify would be one that said, okay, we're dealing with another power. They're going to do everything we say. They're going to give us everything we want. And that's the deal. The Senate would say, great, let's ratify it. Anything short of that, our Senate is incapable of ratifying. And might I add, you're sending Witkoff, who is an avowed Zionist, who has no, and Kushner, wait a minute, an avowed Zionist, and Greenbaum, an avowed Zionist. You're sending a bunch of Zionists, which I consider fascists, to make a deal with Putin or make a deal. No, fascists don't get deals. That's the other side. You got to Lavrov and his people. Yeah. These people are professionals. They've been doing this for years. They understand international law. They understand, and they're like, if we want to negotiate, we have to have a proper team, and we have to do this and that. They understand. You're sending a bunch of Zionists. What a joke!
And real estate. I mean, these guys do think they're buying a fucking condo. I mean, it's what they. This is what they are. This is Kushner and Witkoff. These people, they're not even parts of the American government. They don't have a staff. These are pals of and personal relations of Donald Trump that he sends around because they represent him in some personal way. They don't. The idea that that parties in these conflicts have what for them are existential interests that they're not willing to deal away. That they are right now fighting and dying for and killing for, yet it doesn't happen when you're buying a condo in New York or buying a real estate purchase in New York. Nobody's sending armies out to kill each other for this. So you have Russia, you have Ukraine, you have Iran, and let's send Witkoff and Jared. What these, and as you say, the other side are people who are statesmen, who know history, who know politics, who know international relations. These guys know how to buy condos. I mean, this is embarrassing for the United States of America. And you've got, as you say, what's the opposition? I just saw someone on MSNBC criticizing the Trump administration for not being for retreating on Iran. Oh, they're going to. Iran is insisting we only talk about nuclear weapons. What do you mean? We have to talk about these ballistic missiles. That's what we have to talk about. After the Iran has killed these thousands of protesters, you're going to let them get away with telling you what you can talk. So, as you say, what's the American Congress going to do? What do they want to do? They want to give up Ukraine? Are Democrats going to? They're going to criticize Trump if he gives up Ukraine. They're going to criticize Trump if he doesn't attack Iran. So this is the situation we're in. It's a terrible, terrible situation. And it's the political immaturity and fundamental political stupidity, really, of the American political culture. I mean, they're ahistorical. They're wrapped up in rhetorical notions of either, we're the good guys and rules-based order, or, we're the most powerful guys and we kick everybody's ass. And that's what we're going to do when we do all that. And this kind of crap is silly. It's childish. And yet that's what we have.
And let me show you. Let me throw an article at you, Jim. So
Yeah.
you'll understand it's what we're talking about, this idea of getting a deal. Zelensky says Russia is proposing huge economic deals with the U.S. The Ukrainian president said the Trump administration was pushing for a June deadline to end the war, right? We're discussing bilateral economic deals worth some $12 trillion. Showed him, listen to this. Now, intelligence sources showed him documents that laid out a framework for U.S. economic cooperation that he called the Dmitriev package, on and on, 28-point piece. But here's the thing about it. That all sounds good, and people could be like, oh, yeah, they could make an economic. Here's the deal. But what is this war really about?
Yeah.
It is about NATO expansion. And you have to address the issue that the United States can't tell, and NATO can't tell Russia what to do. There are some fundamental issues here that you ain't going to fix by June, because you can't give Russia what they want, which means they have to take it. And they ain't going to take it by June because they ain't in a rush.
Yeah.
The idea, this sounds great. And some people may look at it, oh boy, this is promising. No, it's not promising. If you understand the heart of the problem here, it is supremacy. It is domination. It is what the U.S. is trying to do, dominate the world. And Russia says no. So the U.S. would have to say, we're going to make deals with you, Russia, based on mutual respect. What Iran is saying, we won't make a deal with you unless it's based on mutual respect. Yeah. Anything other than that, you got to fight it out. If you want to do anything other than that, you're going to have to attack us and fight it out. If it ain't mutual respect, forget it. And the empire to do that now says, I'm not the ruling empire. And I don't see that happening.
I agree. Look, it's the START Treaty. Russia, this is not just about Ukraine for Russia. They want a security architecture in Europe that protects them and that treats them as a respected partner in the Eurasian civilization. Okay. And that means you got to take some of these weapons out of Romania. You got to take first strike weapons out. But now you've got the START Treaty gone. And they're going to, so now everybody, that's a free for all in that respect. Plus, as with Israel, you got another actor involved here. That's a wild card. It's the Ukrainian fascists, and their program is also to destroy Russia for deep, deep reasons. Okay. They want to destroy Russia. So you're not going to get them to go along with you by making a deal, by paying them. Well, maybe not, but they have deep-seated historically rooted drive to get rid of Russia, to defeat Russia. And they want to do that. So Russia is going to have to go into Ukraine, even to get peace with Ukraine. They're going to have to do serious regime change. I said that from the beginning, day one, when they started this. The problem for Russia is the biggest problem is this denazification regime change in Ukraine. Russia is going to have to impose a Russian-friendly. They're going to have to defeat the Nazi movement in Ukraine, which has had now, since 2014, 12 years to develop, right? And has enracinated itself in Western Ukraine. So they're going to have to defeat that and get it off the board, historically and politically, for them. And then they're going to demand that we have to get off the board all of this NATO expansion that's already taken place in Western Europe up into Russia's border, all the military bases, all the military assets, the potential first strike weapons that are there. So all of this is in the game. You're not going to, this is Trump, but Trump does think, I can, between now and June, I'll put some money on the table and everybody, and we'll have tariffs and not tariffs. And we're going to give them, people aren't concerned about that. That's not what's at issue here. And so the question is, to what extent are the people who do know what's at stake here, how are they going to get Trump to say yes to what they want to do? and that's it's very difficult to understand how that's going to work out. But in the meantime, you've got the Russians, you've got the Ukrainian fascists, you've got the Israeli Zionists, you've got all of these
Congress. You've got Congress. You got the European fascist leaders.
Yeah, you got the social imperialist Democrats and Zionist Democrats, and so all of these things are in play in a way that Trump has no idea how to deal with, except to bluster and threaten and blah blah blah. And I don't know who has ideas how to deal with. But right now, what we're seeing him do, and seeing the American administration do, is just full on aggression against everybody that they don't like, and not even hiding it. We're going to go after Democratic states. We want the Republicans to take over the voting process in the United States. We're going to go after Cuba and Venezuela and steal and kidnap their president and put a full oil blockade. Jamaica refused to put oil on a ship for Cuba. So they're threatening everybody. And those other people they're threatening are backing off. And as long as they back off, Cuba's going to go down.
Yeah. Look, these are small, poor countries. They don't have the local countries in the region don't have the wherewithal to do anything. So these are small, poor countries. And now they're going after Mexico.
A powerful country steps in and says, no, Cuba's going to go down. I mean, I hate to say it. I've been to Cuba. I was, it's got a very tough situation, but, and it's lasted for 60 years, more, almost 70, 65 years. And this is a terrible situation. So, I don't know what's going to happen. And at some point, if Cuba goes down and Venezuela goes down, whatever, gets controlled by, at some point then, maybe a year from now, maybe 2 years now, there are going to be a clash between the big powers because the other big powers can't take it. And if they see it, they're going to say, China's going to say, we're playing this game. We're taking up Taiwan right now.
Well, the other part of it is this. And that is, and a lot of Americans don't get this, I still have some clowns. Yes, Garland, I don't know why you're complaining against ICE because they have to stand up for illegal. You really think the government's doing this? You'll keep saying that until they're knocking on your door, dragging you away. You know what I mean? You don't understand the concept of government overreach, and the people that claimed they were anti-government until their guy got in. I don't trust government. Trump went. Well, now I do trust the government.
Yeah, you got to obey. You got to comply with the police, with the ICE.
Yes, those of us who've been saying I will not comply back in COVID, now all of a sudden they're like, you got to comply, man. The government's your friend. They're telling you to do things. Do what they tell you to do. Let them in your house when they say that. Let them your gun. Don't carry a gun to a protest. God knows you do that. I don't care if you remember this. We're bringing our guns to the protest because we believe in the Second Amendment. Now all of a sudden, what about this guy? Screw that. And the thing is, when Stephen Miller was saying, yes, the strong survive, basically. We take what we can take because we can take it. And if you can't stop us, then you don't get it and you don't need it. Only the people that can take it. What they didn't realize was Americans. Yeah, he's talking about you too. He's not just talking outside of America. Yeah, the ruling leader looking inside saying, and as for you, you will shut the hell up. And if you complain against anything, we'll send some mass thugs to your door to beat them. They're going to people's houses in Florida for tweeting something about Israel, but yet saying that look what the Brits are doing. Why they're going after people for tweeting things about Israel. Oh, really?
Yeah, I know. Look, they're breaking into people's. They're breaking into houses. Someone's standing on his doorstep, filming them. They have the right to do that. You can't. They're going to people who are peacefully watching them. They're going to people they think are watching them. I saw this thing that went to a car that was guy sitting in his car in a parking lot. Because they were in the parking lot and they thought he was watching them. And they come in and they say, you're going to get out of here, Kim. What are you talking about? I'm sitting in my car. And they dragged him out. They broke his windows, dragged him out of the car, threatened him. You just can't do the police. The police who do bad shit all the time don't do crap like that. They, for the most part, will back off in a certain state. They don't just they can't just break into people's houses at random, go around the neighborhood, breaking down doors. That's the Fourth Amendment. This is crucial. And they are deliberately, they're doing this so that you see them doing it and that you complain about it and nothing happens. They're telling you we are contemptuous of the Constitution. We're contemptuous of your constitutional rights. And if you try, and we want you to see us doing this. We want you to see how nasty and aggressive we are in doing it. And we're going to continue to do it because you're not stopping us. So you're not going to stop us. So that's the game they play. Someone has to play that game back. And say, if we're going to play that game, we're going to play that game. You break my door down, I'm going to shoot you in the head. And then everybody get upset. Whatever it is, So I don't know. This is the danger that we're in, and that's an imaginary situation that I'm posing, but it's not entirely impossible. And that's the same situation internally and externally that we're now in. We cannot sit back and say, "Oh, the police aren't really just going to come to my neighborhood and break down doors." That's not going to happen. Whatever. They might screw me up. They might, beat me up if they get me in. But Now you're in a situation the police these are not police. These are another organization that's a secret police organization of the Trump administration that is going after you. They just tripled their some $50 billion to build detention camps. These are not for illegal aliens. This is ridiculous. This is for Americans, dissenters, leftists. They say it. We're going after the leftists. We're going after the Democrats, but they think they're leftists, So this is all very, very nasty.
And they'll go after anybody, conservative, libertarian, black, right. If you say, I'll put it like this: if they start some war and they say, you know what? We got a war going on, and Israel needs your sons and daughters to die for Zionism. And you say, well, they're not, my sons and daughters aren't going to die for Zionism. Well, that's what we built this camp for.
Yeah.
We'll put them in there where they'll be beaten daily, whether they ask for it or not. Now, in light, I got one last thing I got to throw at you. In light, this is an old article from 2009. And this is in the context of the whole pedophile stuff going on with This is from the Kiev Post. This is 2009. A lot of people might not have see this, but I dragged this up. Not happy about it, but I dragged it up. 2009.
Yeah.
Pedophiles find Ukraine a good place to roam. Nobody knows the depth of the problem, but nation is seen as a hotbed of child pornography and sexual abuse. 2009, Kiev Post.
Yeah.
Pedophiles roam where they can sexually abuse children with impunity. Unfortunately, Ukraine, with its lax law enforcement, shaky economy, and endemic corruption, they were admitted corruption back then, may provide just a haven. It's very widespread, said Walid Karpouche, president of Kiev's Paparazzi magazine. The depth of the problem is hard to gauge. Stories emerge that hint at a strong appetite among adults, including some members of the nation's political elite, for sex with children. A story that recently got public involved an investigation into a rumored sexual relationship between an official and a teenage girl younger than 16, the legal age of consent. The case ended after the official publicly denied the accusation, withdrew her police, and girl's father refused to discuss the case, which means they either paid him off or threatened to kill him. Yeah. There we go. There we go.
Yeah, look, the end of the Soviet era in these countries was Wild East. I mean, they were places that were, fodder for prostitution and for pedophilia and for anything went. It was corruption. Correct. Ukraine, 2014. You could look it up. Transparency International, one of one of the most corrupt countries in the world, because the place was ruled by money then, and anybody who had money can get anything they wanted. This was brand new for these countries, and it was a hotbed of prostitution and pedophilia. And Israel also was a place where the pedophiles would go, because it wasn't just Catholic priests, it was Jewish rabbis too who were involved with pedophilia in the United States. Anybody who could get to Israel, they were safe. This is a problem of corruption of the elite, of the wealthy and the elite who can pay things off. You have a social system in which money rules, then you can buy your way into it, and you can buy safety, and you can buy protection, and that's what Ukraine has been. It's ruled by oligarchs who can do what they want, and will protect the people that comply with them and serve them. And so this is 2009, you say. Look at that, 15 years. So, has it got any better in Ukraine? I doubt it. I don't know. I mean, this is, when you get to this is what you see with the Epstein thing. When you get to a certain level of elite, ultra elite status in society, you think you can do anything, and none of the rules apply to you. There are no rules. Whatever your desires are need to be fulfilled, and you can fulfill them in any way you want and get away with it. So that's what you have when you have a wild east laissez-faire capitalist society, and when you have a society in which 12 people all have the wealth.
And there was a particular email where Epstein and Lord Rothschild were texting back and forth. And after they said, after the Maidan, there'll be many opportunities in Ukraine, many. And initially I thought it was money. And then I read that, I'm like, perhaps when they said many opportunities, perhaps they didn't mean money.
I think that was Lady Adrienne Rothschild.
Okay.
But they saw, it's one of the examples where they saw, no, I think we missed someone else. Maybe
it was one of the Rothschilds.
It was a male, maybe it was. But you know what they saw was these things are opportunities for us to make money or to have, you know, get some kids or whatever. You know, they're opportunities. War is an opportunity. These people had no interest in their own countries. Mandelbaum was
oh my God,
and he was talking to Epstein about making economic deals that would hurt Britain while he was in the British government. These are people who are part of a transnational elite that run the world. That's what they consider themselves. They consider themselves masters of the universe and exempt from any of the moral or ethical standards that everybody else, they claim everybody else has to follow. And they despise ordinary people. They consider them, dispensable things to use and throw away when they finish with them. Anyway, that's the situation we're at.
Oh crap! There was one I wanted to show you to me that let me see if I can find it. Let me find this. The guys that were charged. Here we go. There was 3 men who were charged with burning up. Do you remember this? See if you remember this, just to show you. And I think this is also related. This is the last thing we'll do. If you remember this, Keir Starmer arson attacks potentially leaked to Russia, they said, right? And what happened was there were 3 young men who apparently had something to do with a Ukrainian escort service. No comment. And these men, for some reason, burned like cars and things that were near some of the houses owned by Keir Starmer, right? And people were like, you know, they were like, it was Russia. Well, no, actually, it was, these guys were all Ukrainians that had nothing to do with Russia, right? And I said, well, let me look at the pictures and maybe I can figure something out. But yeah, I mean, come on, let's look at these guys. Wonder, a Ukrainian escort service? What would Keir Starmer want to do with a Ukrainian? Here's one of the guys. What do you think about this guy?
Yeah.
Let me just say this. If that guy ain't gay, I'm John Wayne. If that guy ain't gay, I'm the Grand Master of the Ku Klux Klan. Okay. So this guy apparently, for whatever reason, had something against Keir Starmer and ended up, and he was a member of an escort service. And he, for whatever reason, was angry at Keir Starmer, maybe had some reason to get revenge for Keir Starmer and decided that he was going to burn down something of Keir Starmer's. I don't know. But I'm telling you right now, they got some dirt on Keir Starmer. Based on this guy, I think you know the direction I'm going.
Yeah, well, okay. You're gonna be a profile. I hate this fact that you're profiling this poor boy here.
Jim. Come on here. I mean, I'm not one to misgender people, but let's not pretend that this guy is, he's not the most male. That guy, he's with an escort service.
I understand.
He's a model. And let's be honest about what's going on here.
No, look,
in light of Lord Mandelson and Jim.
I know. Listen, it's perfectly reasonable presumption in this context. But again, that was years ago. That was a couple of years ago now. That situation that was buried, and nothing ever came of that. And you've got as I saw this thing. It was a funny little cartoon that someone did. Some guy at the White House press conference said, "What about the Epstein files?" And whoever it is at the spokesman for the White House goes, "Oh yeah, the Epstein files. Yeah, it's all true. Everything you read about is true. Wait a minute, you're not denying? No, we're not denying anything. It's all true. Don't worry about it. But it's going to be. We'll forget about it in a week. We'll control this. We're going to forget about it. This is the problem that it becomes a kind of story for a few days or a few weeks, and then nothing comes of it. And the Epstein thing is so crazy. I saw this thing today. Someone had done an analysis of the dentistry in the Epstein files. Apparently, there are thousands of references to dentists and people asking Jeffrey Epstein to make dental appointments for the Princess of Norway saying, "Please make me an appointment for my teeth cleaning." And all of these bizarre, literally over a thousand, thousands of people talking to Jeffrey Epstein about their dental problems and dentists and get me this dentist and that. Or you have, and it's like, so they're saying this must be code for something. Who has an email full of dentistry conversations? So this must be but I couldn't figure out what it was for. So this is so crazy, this Epstein stuff, that you have all kinds of crap here. And you don't know what's real, what's not real, and what's crazy, but that's the problem. Now you have everybody fighting with everybody about what's real, what's not real. So you got so much crap here that eventually it's going to wear itself out from exhaustion.
Here's an example of the manliness of Keir Starmer. You see him doing work on the heavy bag here. Man, I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of those punches. Look at that. Vote labor. What he's going to show you how tough he is. Watch this. Ooch. Ouch.
Takes about 5 seconds for him to get that right hand across.
Yeah. He's that's guys. You wouldn't want to get stuck in a bar on a Saturday night with a bunch of Hell's Angels and got to fight your way out, and you got this guy on your side. You might as well just at that point go over to the bar and get your last shot of whiskey, because you're gonna die. You ain't getting out of that alive. Yeah, that's our guy. So I think my point being, though, a guy, I saw him on Jimmy Dore recently, and he said, yeah, I don't know how true it is, but this is what he said. He said the leadership of TPUSA is homosexual men, and that a guy who came out of the closet, they fired him, and they didn't want him over there because they only wanted people in the closet because they wanted to be able to, utilize this to manipulate him. We look at Hoover. We look at, there's a long history of the Epstein kinds of thing where they particularly find something that would be embarrassing to there used to even was a joke about, you don't want to be caught with either a live girl or a live boy or a dead girl. You ever heard that old political joke? Right. Yeah. It was known that one of the things that's used in politics, in power, is something sexually related that could be embarrassing. So even though we look at Epstein, it's not even about gay or anything. It's about power rather than say, you know what it is? It's about usurping democracy. Democracy says we voted for Jim Kavanaugh. Jim Kavanaugh is the president. Jim Kavanaugh represents us. This is about saying, can we get some compromising information on Jim Kavanaugh so that we can thwart democracy and say, we know they voted on you to end wars, Jim, but if you don't, we'll show everybody this picture of you with, whatever the hell, with an alien, and you better do what we have. It's really the destruction of democracy.
Yeah. First of all, I'm very surprised that you know about my sex life with aliens, but but no. One of the things that people say is this is where you start saying this is kind of true. You don't get to be a leader unless they have some kind of compromise on you. They get all this stuff in advance, and then when they don't let you advance up the ladder unless they know they got something in the drawer that they can pull out. So everybody in the leadership positions has been pre-qualified and pre-corrupted, preemptively corrupted. And then we'll let you become the leader of the party. Then we'll let you become a senator. Then we'll let you become the president, because we know we got stuff on you. So this is one of the things at this point, all these crazy quote unquote conspiracy theories have completely reasonable. That may be the case. That for the most part, people don't get to ascend the ladder politically unless they have some shit on them.
Yep, and I've told you in the past, when I was doing national TV and hanging out with very, very powerful circles in Washington, D.C., I was invited to a sex party.
Yeah.
I got a phone call and got an invitation, and I was ignorant, saying, huh? What? I don't understand what you're saying. And the person was like throwing hints, well, you know, and I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, listen, what did you know? And they like put it out there, and I was like, nah, I don't think I'll.
But you see, this is something that a lot of people would be susceptible to. Oh, well, I'll give it a try. You know, now they got something on you.
So I thought about that. You know, I was younger. I was in my 40s. I was young. I was, you know what I mean? At that point, if I'd have thought to myself, hey, let me just go and see what's going on. If I had done that, right now, I would have to say to myself, oh, my God.
And you'd be governor of Maryland.
Yeah, exactly. But I'd have to say to myself, somewhere down the line, somebody's got a picture of me. This was like in Washington, D.C. with rich people, right? The bottom line was this. Somewhere in there, you best believe there were some cameras and video cameras.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I guarantee there was cameras and video cameras.
But that's the
now
point.
That I look back, and I'd have been screwed, literally and figuratively.
Exactly. They identify people who are up and comers, you know, who are young men, who are single, whatever. And then now we got something on you. So now you're one of these people that is qualified to move up the ladder a bit. You know what I mean? They want you to move up the ladder. This is the way the game is played. And it's amazing to see this, but there it is. And that's been that way for a long time, I guarantee. But, you know, now we're seeing it in such a blatant fashion and such an overwhelming fashion that it's kind of hard to take.
Yeah. When I think back, there were some offers made to me about different things. I was at that time, had I chosen that road, an up and comer, I had some powerful offers made, none of which I would take, you know, some of business offers, things like that. And all of them, I was like, nah, all of them would have meant some level of compromise of my integrity, ideological integrity or something like that. So I had some offers, think tanks, things like that, big time stuff. Nah. And then that was an offer. And I think it was, well, the offers probably would have kept coming and gotten better if I'd have been there. And I wouldn't have known. But at some point, if I decided to stray from the plantation, I might have got a little call and a reminder. Hey, you wouldn't want this to get out. Oh, crap. Holy crap.
I remember I wouldn't. That party we were at.
You have a lot of fun, Garland. We remember too. Here's some video. Yeah. So anyway, all right.
I'm keeping my alien videos well hidden.
Good work. There we go. Excellent. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Jim Cavanaugh. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Substack on the screen, please. And please subscribe for free or for paid. Buy me a coffee. You can do that. All the links are on Substack, on X, Twitter at the polemicist _.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot, everybody. And thank you, everybody. My Patreon and PayPal and buy me a coffee and all that stuff. I really appreciate that. If you can afford it, please. You know, I'm trying to get back to Russia here shortly with Scott Ritter, and I need some funds to be raised. Please help. We got a P.O. box. If you can, you know, send some scratch there. Back in that's how I'm telling myself. Remember, send some scratch. That was old. If you can send, anyway, if you can contribute, that's perfectly, I appreciate it. Even if you can't, you know, a lot of people send me letters and actually ties, all kinds of crazy stuff, toys. Somebody sent me this Trump toy, and it had a little thing you pull on the back, and the mouth was open, and it shot these little yellow foam balls out of the mouth across the room.
Cool.
Yeah. But it was great. Hey, somebody sent it to me. It was hilarious. Anyway, thanks a lot, you all. Certainly appreciate it. Follow Jim Cavanaugh at The Polemicist. Share this on all your social media platforms. Thank you very much. We're out.